Wendy Tabart, it's good to have you back. We were just having a little preamble before we hit record, and we had our first conversation on this podcast. You helped me birth it, really. You were guest number 3 in season 1 back in April 2022. So we're back again. I know the time's just gone whoosh. But yeah, thanks for joining me again and accepting the invitation to come on and chat about what you've been doing.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to be here. It was such a fun time we had a few years ago. So it'd be great to like dig in again and
Yes.
revisit.
Revisit, exactly. And it's going to be
Yes.
the main topic for today, which, well, I'll tell everyone in a minute. But let's like have a little bit of a catch up. What have you been doing? Because you kind of, well, we're talking about cycles, right? And
Yes.
we were actually talking about, you asked me how many episodes I'd done of the podcast, and I said I do that in seasons. So that's
Yes.
kind of like matches with the theme. But you've kind of come full circle also
Yeah, right.
in
Yeah.
what you're doing. So
Yes.
tell us what's been happening over the last couple of years.
I know. So back in that podcast day, I was very passionate, as I am again. It's reignited with discovering and then teaching women about cycle syncing. Um, and I think personally, what happened on that journey and the kind of going through the seasons is stress. I got really done by like stress, as we all did, just out of COVID. And do you know that really messes with your cycle? And I had trouble like identifying where am I? Like stress, like literally just puts it in its place. It's not good. And so I just kind of felt like I lost my feet. And then as I have kind of come out of that place, a bit of a darkish time, and I have I don't know, imagine my life. We have moved. We now live on property outside the city, and that was my dream. I'm back on Instagram called the Digital Farm Girl, and like I've just rediscovered that passion for cycle syncing in my own life, which I kind of was doing anyway, but just sharing it with others, especially female entrepreneurs, but all women. Yeah, so it's been a journey. I was going to say a fun journey, but I don't know. It's been a journey.
You've done all
It's
sorts
been
of
a
things
journey.
though, like you've learnt a new profession, right? You were a
Yeah,
kids
yeah, that's
swimming
right.
instructor. Are you still doing that?
Yes. No, so I had to go back to
Ah,
work when I moved to my farm. Yay. Back to work to pay for the dream. So yeah, I trained as a baby swim teacher, which I did for 18 months. And I work currently at an organic wholesaler, which is right up my alley. I'm right into kind of natural living, eating as whole foods as we can and as, clean as we can. So those parts of my life are like, going to work 3 days a week is awesome, but there's always been that creative buzz inside of me that I can never seem to kind of let it shift. So here I am back, sharing this passion that I think women need to hear.
mm,
Or something I feel like we should have been taught at school at the basic about our own bodies and our own rhythms, but we just weren't. So yeah, here we are.
yeah,
Here we
cool.
are. Yeah.
I was listening to the episode that we recorded a couple of years ago, and the
Yeah.
same thing, there's the same theme. I was going to start with this theme. When
Yes.
you say cycle syncing, or when I say cycle syncing to
Yeah.
people, women, I say, do you know anything about cycle syncing? And I said this in the podcast a couple of years ago, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of repeating myself. They still think that cycle syncing is about you being in tune with your friends, with the people you live with,
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I
not
guess
like
that,
this
yeah.
conscious
No. Yeah. That's
practice.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So no, I kind of describe it as basically aligning external activities, external, I don't know, your whatever you're doing, whether it be work, how you're eating, how you're working out, how you're living, what your social calendar looks like, aligning that external with your internal rhythms. And that rhythm is our cycle. And I still constantly hear people refer to their period as I've got my cycle. And I'm like, no, no, that's just a very small part of it. Like it's
It's
much
the
fuller
whole
than that.
thing. Yeah.
It's much fuller, and we don't know about that fullness. Sometimes I think in the past, I have known, like when I was either trying to get pregnant or not trying to get pregnant, different parts of my cycle. You're watching for that ovulation, but actually it's this whole big 28-day cycle, and it's not just that 5 or 6 days where you've got your period. So it's definitely yeah, this practice of aligning external activities with internal rhythms in line with that 28-day or whatever you are cycle. So
Cool. Yeah,
pretty mind blowing.
yes, it's totally mind blowing. I think one of the biggest mind blowing things about it is, as you mentioned,
Mm.
it's something that we haven't really been taught to do. And it's
Yeah,
like this thing that can literally change the way you perceive yourself, but
100%.
change the way that you feel about like what you're doing in your everyday life, the choices that you're making,
Yeah,
when you
100%.
retreat, when you're more outward, all of these things that if you practice, and obviously it is a practice, and that's what you
Mm.
teach,
Yep.
it can, yeah, it can change your experience of your cycle, but also
Of
of
life.
life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's even down to the whole like, you know, inner critic and speaking harshly
Right.
to ourselves or self-sabotaging. Like, there's actually a part in your cycle where that naturally happens. Like, if we knew that as women, like, wouldn't we be looking out for it and just being a little kinder and be like, oh, there you are. I see that's what's happening. We're in these days, like it really honestly can affect everything, all parts of your life. So it's definitely something that I feel like more of us need to understand, like even if it's just a basic, for self-love type of purposes. Obviously, I love to take it further and talk about it, how you align your business tasks for female entrepreneurs, but like it really is as basic as, how hard do you push yourself? Like how, yeah, how do you speak to yourself? How do you feel about what's going on? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Before
Um,
we get into like the what you're actually doing with your program and your coaching,
mm,
and like you're specifically, as you said, you're specifically working with women in business or entrepreneurial women, and how they can
yeah,
kind of create their work life balance in inverted commas around their
yeah.
cycle. But like you mentioned that you started, and in our last episode together, that you this is something you sort of became a bit more aware of, and you were practicing quite a lot in your
Mm.
early 40s, I think you said.
Yeah, well, actually, I think it was late 30s.
Okay.
So I,
Yeah.
I did some, looked at the calendar a little while ago and I was like, oh, wow. So that was late 30s, which I feel is like actually very late. Imagine being in your
Yeah.
late 30s, discovering something so fundamental. So I'm so delighted when people in their 20s or 30s like cotton on or just hear it. I'm like, wow, you've just saved yourself like 2 decades of pain. So yeah, I was just getting on with life. I think I had not quite very young, but like primary age kids. And I was trying to rediscover myself and had done some coaching with a lady. And I remember she had a guest that talked about this cycle syncing. And I was like, what? And I have had really a tricky time with my period all my life, like pain, very heavy. Like it's just, there's things going on that I just cannot get to the bottom of. But anyway, because of that, I've always thought it was such a burden. It was just like, oh, it's coming again. And to have someone tell me that it's actually part of something beautiful. And in fact, your actual menstrual phase can be used for good, not just bad or evil like I thought it was really like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And like I was just taken from that moment on. So I definitely have used it in all aspects of my life. Yeah, just with not with yeah, the self-talk and the pushing and just the resting. Like some of it is so countercultural. It was like society got together and was like, let's not tell women about this. Let's expect them to be exactly as if they have male hormones, which are so different to a female's hormones. They reset every single day. They're high in the morning, low in the evening. They don't fluctuate very much compared to a female. And like every day, they're the same person. And when you compare that to us, we have this 28 days before we reset, or that's just, the average. So we have this cycle that doesn't reset for 28 days. So what a man resets in one day, we reset in 28 days. And I think society and ourselves have come to expect that we behave as if we have that male hormonal profile. And that's just what we think is right. That's what we aim for. And how disappointing and how devastating is it when you can't keep up with that, because we're not set up like that. So
Well,
you've got
like,
you've
what
got
do
me
we
talking
do?
on my passion.
Yeah, well, what do we do? We, like, as a young woman, I went to the doctors and I got on the pill, right?
Oh,
So
yes. Yeah.
you don't, and that's
No,
almost like a way of managing your period so that you don't get a real
absolutely.
one. And
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. Yeah,
like,
and
there's,
even now you go and the only thing that they want
yes,
to give you is, oh, I forgot what it's
something
called.
where that you put it in your, under
Yeah,
your skin
yeah,
and it
yeah.
releases
I
it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe that works for some people. It doesn't, it's not me. I would rather honestly experience what we were designed to be like. And that does come with highs and
Mm,
lows. It does mean you can't lift as heavy weights one week than you can the next. It does mean you'll be slower one week to the next. So you can't have the expectations that oh, I hate this. I can't do as much. Like it's just beautiful fluctuations. And when you start to see the beauty in it, then I think, women have, can they're just in touch with them, with who they are and how
yeah.
they were designed. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
So when
Beautiful.
you first found out about it, what sorts of things did you do? Was it like, did you start by just sort of recognizing how you were feeling, or did you start to
Yeah.
integrate some
So,
particular practices around different parts of your cycle?
yeah, I think so. Gosh, it's just trying to remember back. It's been such a journey. But and even now I teach the theory, but
Mm,
then it always has to be put next to, okay, Nadine, how does your body work?
mm,
How are you? So it always comes with charting and like some observations to start with. And I would have started like that. I would have gone, okay, there's a few things we know. We know when you get your period. It's very obvious. You know when it's finished. So there's one phase or of the four that we know.
so you would
Um,
start by just sort of writing that down
yeah,
as it
yep,
happens.
yeah, yep. And I teach now, so we chart how you feel every day, physically, energetically, and emotionally. And so we just start to get some data, I suppose,
Mm.
behind that. So you start to recognize, oh, after my period, I actually start to like have more energy and I start to feel great. And then something happens and then it all comes down. So we're just like observing for the first little while. And I still sometimes observe, but mostly once you've done it for a little while, you know how your body responds. So, you get it. So I always say to my girls, chart, observe for 3 months, and you'll
Okay.
have great data to know, okay, there's in your cycle, there is 4 phases. They break it up. Everyone knows your menstrual phase, that's when you bleed. Then your follicular ovulation, which we know from like you need to be in that phase to get pregnant. And then your luteal phase, which I hear more and more people talking about. And that's the most misunderstood phase, I think, of them all. So there's these 4 phases, and I kind of talk about them actually like traffic lights in 3 stages. So there's the go stage, which is like green, that's your follicular and your ovulation. You're very outward and you're very like energetic and bubbly and magnetic, and you want to do things for everyone and you want to like do this, chat with people. And then you switch into your luteal phase, which it's like you're contracting, and I call that the slow. So on the traffic light, we've gone green. This is your orange phase where you're like, everything's slowing down because with the orange lights, you should be slowing down, even though my daughter sees me go through them sometimes. And then your menstrual phase, like that's your kind of red. I color code it like that. So your red phase is like you've got to stop, which is so countercultural. So like being told all our lives to just go, go,
Push
go.
through. Yeah.
Do not stop for your period. There's nothing wrong with you. You do not need to, you can just do everything. And the whole society now has been set up so you don't even have to acknowledge it. Only internally
Mm,
you feel sluggish. You
mm.
sometimes feel physically yuck. You're like bleeding, like stuff is going on. So yeah, so we observe like how your body reacts in those in those different stages. And then that gives you a framework, I guess, to know, okay, so I'm actually on day, what, 8 now. That means I'm like feeling expansive. I'm really good to like have coffee with people, to like do lives, to do interviews. But you know what? In 7 days, I'm going to be on the go slow, and you're going to want to slow down, and you're going to have to listen to yourself. So, we observe, we learn the theory, observe what's happening in our body, and then you start applying things. So, I would just be easier on myself. I would do self-care, but I do it in the luteal phase, like in the go slow phase, where you really need to take care of yourself. I feel like you don't need much self-care when you're feeling vibrant and energetic and amazing. Like that takes care of itself, that phase. So there's just little things that, I would put in to honor where I was. Maybe I would pre-make meals or something, so I wasn't under so much pressure during the go slow stage. So, just little things here and there. And because it's on a cycle, we have so many opportunities to practice. So you do a little bit one cycle, and then I would be like, okay, next cycle I'll try again, and I'll try and master that a little bit more. And, until the end, until we do menopause, we've just got cycle after cycle after cycle. So our body's very kind. We just take it step by step and just learn. It's good.
Cool. I want to ask you something else, but my dog is in here and she wants to get out. So I'm just going to
Oh,
open the door and let
let
her
her
out.
out. Yes, do that. Definitely.
Very
You're
good.
back.
That was great.
Yes.
That was really good description. Thank you. And I think, well, it can be hard to do something like this. It takes, I love that you kind of say, we get that opportunity every month to reassess,
Mm.
reevaluate, and like figure it out. Because sometimes it's like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's right. That's why I felt shit last week. It's
Yes.
because I was premenstrual. But
Yes.
you do
Yep.
need some time for this. It's not like a magic
Oh,
pill where all of a sudden you're going to be able to, you know, do all of the things and align everything.
no. Yes.
You need to
Yeah.
refamiliarize yourself, because basically what we've been doing for however many years is like shutting a door on all of that stuff, right? And doing everything we
Absolutely.
can to ignore it, avoid it, dread it, whatever it is.
Mm.
So yeah, it takes a level of commitment, and yeah, like
It's a,
that first 3 months of tracking and like noting things is obviously
mm.
really important, because
Yes.
then after that you can start creating your plans, your schedules, your work
Yeah. Yeah. And
around
I think,
that.
like you said, it's a practice. So it's something you choose to once you've got that commitment of that 3 months and all that kind of data done and dusted, then the doing is the practice. And that goes on. That goes on. And I just saw I follow somebody who was talking about menopause, and they said the key, the magic pill for menopause is rest. And I was like, oh, we get to practice that every cycle for a couple of days, um, which is when we're to stop ish. I'm like, I mean, we all have lives, so you can't stop everything, but you can put a little pause button on and take some time. I was like, oh, we get to practice that every time we bleed, every time we have our menstrual cycle, part of the cycle, we get to like practice that. And then look at that going forward, nailing rest in that kind of menopause transition is the key. But how hard is that? Life goes on. So it's commitment, like you said, to honoring yourself. And yeah, it's big. It's really big.
I want to talk to you about menopause, perimenopause as well, because I'm in that phase, and you would
Yes.
be getting close-ish, I
I'm
reckon.
in denial. I'm in
There's
denial.
nothing to deny. It's all good, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. We had a little bit of messaging
Yes.
this week about that,
Yeah.
but like, what was the other thing I was going to ask you about? Oh, so you said that when we spoke on the podcast a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago actually,
Mm.
and you've had this big life change and there was lots of stress and that sort of thing, and you really felt that you lost sight of this
Mm.
part of yourself and this passion that you
Yes.
had. So what happened? Like, because obviously this is something that if women are interested in cycle syncing for
Mm.
themselves, it would be really good to understand like
Yeah.
the potential pitfalls, I guess you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's not gonna
Mm.
necessarily be perfect.
No, oh, absolutely not. And I think what happened was not just that I lost sight, but that my body actually, it felt like there was a cloud. The stress
Mm.
created a cloud or a barrier between what your hormones would naturally want to do and what they did. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not medical, so I can't tell you exactly what was going on, but from experience and what I've read, stress terribly disrupts our hormones. And so what I think was happening was, when I was in that expansive phase, it was really being clouded by stress. Those stress hormones were like interrupting the hormones that were up and happy and magnetic. And
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
I don't even feel that anymore. I can't
Mm.
recognize that. I know that I'm in that part of my cycle because I've already finished my period and I haven't yet ovulated. This is supposed to be the good bit, that's the wrong way of speaking about it, but this is the supposed to be the happy, joyful time, and it's not there. And I think the stress hormones, they play games and they don't let those other hormones like do what they need to do.
Mm.
And so, so it was getting control of the stress that had to come down. And then as that came down and life settled, then I was like, oh, there is the cycle again.
Yeah, wow.
It's been able to pop back through. So if you're tracking and you're doing that observations and you're like, the theory is not matching my experience, then that's when you can dig into like, well, are your hormones being interrupted by stress, for example? And
Yeah.
are they not actually being able to express themselves? I wish I could like see inside what it looks like, in your
Yeah.
body. But the more I learn and the more I read about your body, like that stress, that cortisol is not meant to be there day after day, like hour after hour. It's supposed to come and go, fight the lion or whatever. But we're not meant to live in chronic stress. And
Mm.
people have stress for all sorts of reasons. So
Yeah,
I
and
had my I
like
had my season.
yeah, right. And like entrepreneurs, business people, business women, like that
Mm,
could be a real thing. But
absolutely.
you're helping them to design their life so that they are more aligned, and that doesn't happen.
Yes,
But
that would.
interestingly,
Mm,
just in terms of the cycle stuff, I was talking to someone about it today. But
mm,
when I was trying to get pregnant the first time, we ended up we
mm.
did IVF in the end, and then Winnie came second and like a natural pregnancy.
Yeah,
And we were just sort of saying, interesting how your body readapts,
yeah,
and but that was a different type of stress. I was doing CrossFit and I was training like
yeah, yeah. Right.
probably 8 times a week,
Mm.
right? My body was in a stress state.
In
So it's not
stress.
just like
Yeah,
the stress can come in
yeah.
many different
External.
forms,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
exercise, intense exercise can be another form. And I know that there are other women that probably, have these, oh, I fell pregnant even in the midst of, competing in CrossFit. Like I've heard that
Yeah,
story as well. So it doesn't
yeah.
always affect women, but it can. And I think that's a
It
really,
can,
really
and it's
key.
it's your everybody's body is different,
Yeah.
and so it's your level of stress. Like maybe that
Mm,
amount of stress pushed you over a line into the I'm really stressed,
mm,
whereas someone else it didn't push them.
yeah.
Like it really is about getting to know your body and paying attention to what's going on with you, and then taking it from there. So
Mm,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely. Yeah.
Could you
Yeah.
give us a little bit of insight into those four phases and what sorts of things you would recommend?
Yeah,
Without giving too
absolutely.
much away.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's so good. All this information is available everywhere.
Yeah.
Go and look, and it's all there. It's awesome. Um, so let's start with the just with your period because
Yeah.
everybody knows that phase. So that's the menstrual phase of your cycle. You're bleeding, and I like to think of it as kind of out with the old, making way for the new.
Mm.
And so during that time, I do teach, I call them the three R's. And this applies business or not business, like just in our lives. So rest, like often the first couple of days of your cycle, it's like just slow down. Even if you're busy, try and slow down.
Mm.
Then reflect. So look back. It's when you have your period, your hormones are very low. So your left and right brain, they're just like talking, like everything's very level. So you can analyze with like just this, unbiased brain.
Okay.
And so we reflect, we look back and I think, what have we done? What have I done in the last cycle? What did I love? What did I not love? What aligned? What didn't align? And then the next one is reset. So this the third R. So look forward to the next cycle and make a plan. So just like you would make a plan on your calendar, what's coming up in November, for example, instead of looking at it as November, let's look at it as your next 28 days and let's like make a plan for what you're going to do during that cycle. So that's kind of like how to make use of where your hormones are at during your menstrual phase. As you come out of that, your like estrogen starts to increase and there's a couple of other awesome little hormones that get dropped in at the end and you start to feel like a bear coming out of a cave. You're like, oh wow. And you just start to light up a little bit and you've got lots of ideas and you want to like start seeing people again, which is really cool. So that is a time as it goes into the third phase, which is ovulation. I think that's like the climax of the expansion, to like really hang out with people. If in a business sense, like do interviews like this, collaborate with people, be in front of the camera. You usually feel more magnetic, you feel more lovely because if you think about your body during this phase, what it's doing is trying to get you pregnant. Like that's the whole like thing. You're like, okay, good. Your body's like, come on, we're gonna drop an egg. You're gonna like find a
I've
mate and you're
got the
gonna get
egg.
pregnant. Yeah. So the same, like with that bit aside, that's how you're feeling. You're coming out, you're feeling excited, you're like, I've got the goods. So really use that time to like do all your people things, you like see people and like just be vibrant. And then after you've ovulated, your poor body, if you're not pregnant, it's like, oh, hold on a minute, what's happened? And I think it gets a bit sad. So you go
Oh.
into that luteal phase, which we often refer to as, oh, you've got PMS, you're so grumpy. And I think that's what our body's doing. It's grieving because it didn't get pregnant again.
Oh.
It's got to like prepare for like another flush out. It's not keeping everything because you're not pregnant. And so during that time, you're more inward focused and you're more into just like getting things done. It's almost like a little bit of nesting because it's like, are you pregnant? Are you not pregnant?
Mm.
And so you're like just cleaning up and organizing and doing back end jobs. You don't really want to be doing front end things. You don't want to be doing your people stuff during that phase. So that's amazing to know.
Mm.
Now, what happens is we often will come out of our period and we're feeling all amazing and we'll make all these dates to like, engage with people, but you've got to make them in a few weeks because everyone's busy. And what do you know? It falls straight into your contractive phase, your luteal phase when you could not, you don't want to leave the house. And you're like, shit, that was not good. So it's just about knowing where how your calendar is going to look, your actual like Monday to Friday calendar, where are you going to be at, and trying to align some of your life or your business tasks so they just fall into where your hormones are supporting them. So we go in the expansive kind of follicular and ovulation, then we slow down in the luteal phase, and then we just like I say stop. Obviously, we can't stop, but we take moments of stop when you're going through your period. So it's a beautiful cycle. You do it once and then it starts again. And like when you start looking forward to that rest and that like reflecting and resetting of your goals every month during your period, you're like, wow, there's something good about this. Like it's not as terrible as, I've been told all this time. So
Yeah,
does that
that
give you a
sounds.
bit of a picture?
Yeah, it's
That,
great. Yeah,
yeah.
it's very good, and I think that it's a good. Yeah, like when I was thinking about like starting something like this, it was like it felt a little bit overwhelming. But if you literally
Yeah.
just start on the day of your period, first day of your period,
Yes. Yeah.
and you just use that as that springboard, right?
Yes,
To
absolutely.
start, because I have for example, I have my calendar for booking podcasts. Like if I know, like if I have a bit of an idea, I'm actually gonna start trying that. Is like
Yes.
blocking out certain times based on that
Yeah. Yeah.
cycle. I have got
And that's
other things to talk
that's
about
how
based
I
on that though.
that's how I booked in this time because I
Yeah,
was like, okay, I want to book in when I'm in the expansive phase, it just brings a little bit extra pizzazz. Like it's not like I couldn't talk to you when I have my period or when I'm in my luteal, but I'm just going to be a bit more, I probably
yeah,
couldn't be bothered straightening my hair and I'm just going to have like less energy.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just about
And even
aligning.
the way you look, like I look at myself in the mirror at certain points in the month, and
Mm,
I'm like, I look amazing. I feel really
exactly.
good. And
Exactly.
then I like look at myself and I think, girl, you look
I know.
shit.
I know. I know. And
But
there's
part of that is actually probably, I don't know whether like how much of that is perception and how much of that is actual reality. Like how much of
well,
it is based on
to
how
be
you
honest,
feeling or
I think it really is like actual reality. Not that saying that you look like shit, but you haven't got that extra energy
yeah,
that like
the
pizzazzes you, right?
spark, yeah.
So I literally, like, if you watch my Instagram for 2 weeks, I'm like straightening my hair, I'm like shiny, shiny. Then if I come on live during the second half of my thing, I look terrible, but I'm like, this is authentic me. I'm showing up. I don't have the pep in my step, but I'm like, again, I'm authentically showing up. It's okay. So you are very different during those times. And that's the problem when society tells us that as like that luteal phase is not okay, or your period, it's not okay. We don't want women to be like slowing down. We don't want them to be inward. We don't want any of this. You've literally knocked off half of your month where you feel terrible about yourself. You're being told that you're not enough. And so I'm like, guys, we need to learn to love that second half. It's
And
so misunderstood.
use it in the right way.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Don't try and make it do something it's not designed for. Like, don't try and launch a product when you're like knee deep in your period or something. Like you don't want to do that. So
Good
there's
point.
times, yeah. And I find that that's what I find cycle syncing is. We're answering the when question. When do your hormones support you best to do this? When do they support you to do that? When? So it's not necessarily the how, it's the when of like, okay, if you want to use them as your edge, when in the month, should you do that? So I find that yeah, it's a different question which we don't ask very often. So yeah.
Yes. All right. You mentioned that you're in denial about perimenopause. You might not be in perimenopause yet, which is all
Yeah,
very well, but like, don't be in denial.
I know that.
We
No,
talked. We had a little bit of back and
yes,
forth
I
messaging
think
a
what
couple of
I
days ago about
I
that.
think yeah, and
It
I think
definitely
what I
changes
mean is
things up.
yes. And I told you I'm witnessing my friends go through it,
Yeah.
and there's just such a varied response to it. And I'm not scared of it. I'm just loving like the cycle and the
Yes.
rhythm at the
Yeah.
moment. And I still have that. I still get my cycle on the day or the day before, like
Well,
when I
then,
know it's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's not quite there yet.
No, no, you're not there
Um,
yet.
but like it's interesting watching other people and then listening to wise people who have gone through it and just that just really struck me when I heard that lady say the key is resting and stopping. I'm like, wow, it's so countercultural. Oh, like just so countercultural.
Mm.
It's not allowed. Like, what a rebel. What a rebel if we are going to go forth and do that.
Yeah. Well, I was saying to someone the other day, like there seems to be, and very similar to when we have our cycle, right? That part of our life where I was saying, you know, we take the pill or we just push,
Yes.
like you're saying, we push through and we ignore it, and it's like
Mm,
let's just pretend that's not happening.
yes.
Perimenopause and menopause is kind of in that same. It's in a new category, but the same
Yeah,
things start to happen, and there's so much. It
absolutely.
feels like there's like this whole fear-based messaging about it, about how awful it is. But
Yes.
rest is a massive key, and lifestyle and
Yes.
stress have
Yeah,
big impact on your
absolutely.
experience of it, I believe. And
Mm,
that whole thing of pushing through, ignoring it,
yeah,
taking a drug, you know,
yeah,
HRT, which I think that,
yeah.
you know, some people are just desperate, some women are desperate because they do feel so
Yes.
bad. But those
Yes.
symptoms that we might
Mm,
experience are signs,
yeah.
just like our, you know, parts of our period, you know, our cycle
Yeah.
are, if we're
Yes.
having certain experiences, that it can be
Yeah.
indicators that you're out of balance.
Yeah.
And so
And you that's right. And you need some alignment. And like I don't want to talk too much into it because I'm not there yet, but you definitely can see it in the cycle syncing that you do have to go against the grain. So if we're still trying to live on the expectations of we have men's hormones, then we are never going to be able to align. So there's some massive changes that need to happen. And I expect in perimenopause and menopause, the same thing has to happen. Major things. Maybe you can't go on working 5 days a week, 9 to 5, like, but that's huge. Like there's big changes that people can experience to reduce that stress and to ease into it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. One thing that I found helpful, because um, I am sort of perimenopausal, and
yeah.
I don't want to push the conversation away from the work that
No,
you're doing. But one thing that I've
yeah,
found helpful, because I don't always know when my period or whether I'll ever get one again, I'm kind
yeah,
of. But in the last couple of years, I've worn an Aura ring, which is like a
yeah,
device. You know, lots of people are wearing Fitbits and that sort of stuff.
yes, yeah,
And the one thing that I noticed, if I am going to get a period, is my HRV will drop in the week
right,
leading up. My heart
yeah,
rate variability will
yes,
drop,
yeah,
and my body temperature goes up
yeah, right. So
quite
you've got
significantly
signs. Yeah,
for about 7 days. I'll have a big peak,
yeah,
and then it will start
yeah,
to go back down, and then I'll get a period.
yeah,
And that's one of the reasons I still wear the ring, because
yeah.
I just wear
It
it at
gives you a
night.
warning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I definitely feel that.
mm,
But
yeah.
another
And
thing, yeah, go.
no, I was just going to say, going into that when you don't have a cycle, there are ways to remain cyclical by following the moon cycles, or
Yes,
doing just keeping those feminine rhythms, so you can make sure you rest and you can, like,
yeah.
just be kind to yourself in those ways. So it's not the end,
It's not
like
the end,
we're
and like
still,
as you
yeah,
said, like you wish that you'd found it in your 20s, and for me, I wish I'd found it in my
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes,
anytime. But like
yes,
it was good to find it and understand it, even for those, you know, the last three years or so, and have a bit
absolutely.
more of an understanding, and also for like
Mm.
understanding my clients.
Mm.
I've actually got an astrological diary, so it's just a
Oh
regular
yeah.
diary, but it's got moon cycles in it, and I thought I would
Ah, there you
can I share
go. Go for
the
it.
cycles of the moon and how it compares? It's got
Yes. Yeah.
so it says that, and you talk about seasons as well.
Yeah.
So the full moon, here is the new moon is the menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
and that's considered winter. And then follicular is the first quarter,
Yeah.
and ovulation is the full moon,
The full moon. Yeah.
and luteal is the third quarter.
Yeah.
So if you kind of know that and you can track the cycles of the moon, so for me, I would have just had with the new moon, probably just had my menstrual.
Yes.
And it definitely felt a little bit like that actually. Didn't really
Yeah.
feel like doing much. Like
Yeah.
the new moon came on Friday last week and I did not want to do a thing.
Yeah. Right.
And
Interesting, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Mm.
Like I was
Yeah.
very low energy for the first 2 days of
Yeah.
the new moon,
Yeah.
which kind
So
of
fascinating.
totally, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and if
sort of
nothing else,
balances
like
with that.
just learning how to listen to your body and
Mm,
to not push. I mean, so many people talk about this in different ways, but just listen and be okay with honoring how it's feeling. I think that is beautiful. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
What other, um, now I know that you've experimented and you do use other things. So you work with your entrepreneurial women and helping them in their business to use their
Mm.
cycle to their advantage. Um, what other areas of your life? I know that
Um,
you
I
do
think that
you use it with your exercise?
I'm definitely aware that
Mm,
in that phase, so pre-period, I'm aware that I'm probably not going to be able to do as much, and
mm,
that's okay. I don't, I'm not hard on myself. If I can't do it, I can't do it.
yeah.
And then I do have a little personal rule, day one and day two, which I find quite tricky. I just,
Mm,
I just don't go there. I just rest and don't try and, you know, lift weights or do anything on that day. I mean, I can walk or would
mm,
do whatever I need, but I know I really need to have a little break. And so last week I that happened, and I would normally work out, and it was day two, and I'm like, I actually feel terrible. I don't, I and I've told myself you don't have to. So, okay, I have to trust the process that I'm going to make it up on the days coming forward, going, beyond that. And I did, and it was fine. Like the world did not end because I didn't do my workout on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Like I switched it Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and it was all fine. So I just, yeah, I do make that little tweak there, and I'm just, I just know, okay, going into your those expansive that expansive phase will just try and push a little bit harder, could you lift a little bit more type of thing. So yeah, I do that, and then I certainly use it for my social calendar and just like kind of put the brakes on when I know I'm not going to be feeling great, or just feeling low energy. And you know what, if you're catching up with your best friend who it doesn't matter how you
mm,
show up, it doesn't matter. But if you're seeing someone who you haven't seen in 6 months and this is your one chance and you're like, you're going to want to have to put in some effort, then, I just like, okay, let's put it when I know I'm going to feel awesome. Like, why not? Some things you can't change, but if you know that your hormones are on your side, why not use them?
mm,
Like make good use of them. I just try and go a little bit easier on myself during that contractive luteal phase. Like, yeah, I might have pre-made food so I don't have that pressure all the time. I'm a bit easier on myself. Doesn't matter if we eat the same thing every third day or whatever, I don't push so hard. And I think half the time this PMS that we have and the crankiness and the
mm.
agitation is because we want to be looking inwards. We want to be doing our own thing, but the demands still
Demands.
happen around us. So we still get the mum or, the work demands. So if you can somehow like reduce them, and I'm not saying they're not going to call, but if you can reduce the stress in other ways so that the things that can't change, then you're less agitated and you're less grumpy. The PMS is less. So the more you can sync with your hormones, I think the less PMS will affect you.
Mm.
People have had, positive switches out there. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
they're good
yeah,
tips.
yeah,
With exercise, like one thing that I've witnessed with clients
yes,
is that, well, um, they might be having a bad day in the gym kind of thing, and I will kind of
mm,
say, when are you due your cycle? they'll
Yes.
be like, oh yeah, like because they're not
Yeah,
cycle
right.
syncing. But then it's
Yes,
like, well,
they're not aware.
you're not feeling. You might feel more out of breath.
Yeah.
Is it the luteal that you call it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that yeah.
That's
So
your
it's actually a
pre-period.
we have a physiological change in our bodies where we can't produce as
Mm.
much nitric oxide,
Yeah, right.
which is an oxygen carrying
Yeah.
product in our bodies. So we don't
Right.
produce as much when we're premenstrual in that part of our cycle. So we can feel quite breathless, and things can
Yes.
feel more effort, and
Yeah.
our strength reduces. But we can, if you
Yeah.
understand that, you can give
Totally.
yourself a bit of grace, right?
Yeah.
It's like you
Absolutely.
said, if you know that it's your luteal phase and it's going to feel a little bit harder than normal, even though you did
Yes.
X last week when you were
Yes.
in your, in your previous
Yes.
phases of the cycle,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that it really makes me sad when I hear people like kind of that self-hate that happens during that time. Like,
Yeah, what's
damn it,
wrong
I
with
can't
me?
lift as much. Oh, I hate this. I can't go as hard. But
Mm.
like, oh, if we, when you
If
get
you
to
changed it
understand
to
that,
like, oh, this is amazing, my body's doing the
I
thing that
know,
it's
I
designed to
know.
do.
And you know what? Maybe you compare what you're doing in week 2 of your cycle with week 2 of the next cycle.
Mm.
Not week 2 compared to week
Week
4,
four.
because it's just not the same. It's completely, it's like you're not the same person. I mean, you are, but you're kind of like so different, like in all aspects from week 2 to week 4. It's like it's crazy how different we can be. And when we're expected by others and the society. And then when we expect ourselves to be the same, it's like a recipe for disaster or for
Mm.
like self-loathing and self-disappointment. And I was just like, oh, it doesn't have to be like that,
Yeah. What about
set
food?
yourself free. Yeah. So I think before, I mean, everyone knows you've got the munchies and you want to eat chocolate before your period, right? But it's a real thing. You're hungrier then. So, go with that, but like try and eat nutritious food that's going to be,
Mm.
like
Yeah. But don't
fill
have
you
any
up in a
shame
in a good
around it.
way. No, it's just going to happen. And if you're like trying to count calories, you know what, that week it's going to be trickier to stick to what you're doing and just accept that.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
just the whole thing is understanding and accepting that we are cyclical and our cycle takes that whole 4 weeks to complete. 4 weeks to go through the cycle. If we can accept that, then just like it's just, yeah, it is amazing what can come of women being okay with that, which, again, like I said, we should have been taught in school. Why were we not ever taught?
No.
So yay for every time someone new like listens to your podcast and
Yay.
learns, and yay
Exactly.
to just some more and more awareness. And when I hear people talking about it online, if I follow different fitness people or different food people or different business people, I'm like, yes, talk about it, like get it out there because it's a message that just needs to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with
Yeah.
you. Um, so your program, not officially named in full yet, which
It's
is
a
all
work
good.
in progress, right?
Work in
Right?
progress, and it may
Yes.
change, but that's all good.
Yes.
But
So,
the philosophy is that you're helping women align their
yeah.
cycle and their business, right? So
Yep.
when
Yep.
to
So their
slow
business
down, when to
tasks.
be more outward.
Yeah.
So what does your
Yeah.
program actually
Yep.
look like?
Yeah. So,
What's it all about?
yeah, so we have a great like tool to help you to know when to do things, which is awesome. And then, it's a little mini course with like modules where I'm teaching you this is what you might be doing during this phase, and this phase. Here's the dates because you've just used your planner that I've supplied you. And then just try and schedule, like it's all about the when.
Mm,
Schedule when you're going to record your whatever you're filming and when you're going to sit down and do the creating of it, because two different things. Use your hormones for that edge. So you want to like be doing your magnetic things where you're engaging with people or going live or filming content when you are magnetic, and then you want to use your downtime to like put it all together where you're like making and whatever. So yeah, so we just go through like kind of the what is the cycle syncing. Here's your planner on so you know exactly when to do things in your cycle that's coming. It's very practical, and talk you through what you might do it. And of course, knowing your own body is like so important. So showing you how to do that initial tracking, so you can understand and collect your own data. So it's pretty cool. I love
Very
it.
cool. Very cool.
I love
And do
it.
they get any, do you do any face-to-face coaching or online like group coaching, or is it all kind of like a
Yeah.
pre-packaged program?
Yeah, this will be pre-packaged, and I love talking about it, and I'm very open to where it might go.
Mm,
But because I'm cyclical, I'm like, do you know what? If I made something that's like a bit more face-to-face and
the
like a
timing was wrong
container
for
with people,
everyone.
the time would we work this timing? But I'm not going to say no to it, for in the future. But for now, it's going to be this information. I'm in my DMs. I'm so happy to talk about this stuff
Mm,
anytime. So, you can engage in that way. But I just want more and more women to kind of know that theory, know their body, and then know when to and how to take advantage of their hormones. So
yeah. And
pretty
then tell more
simple.
women.
Absolutely. Spread the news. Spread
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So thank you.
No worries. So we can you'll be in our guest directory, the podcast guest
Yes.
directory.
Yes.
There'll be, do you have a website, or we sending
I'm
people to your
on, yeah,
socials at the
just
moment?
just go to socials. Yeah, I'm on
Yeah.
Instagram, digital_farm girl,
Yeah.
just in honor of this digital world I'm in, but then also honoring that part of my life that had this massive dream and just is here. I'm here doing it. And so that's kind of the backdrop for talking about periods. Like so unlikely if, I've got this one reel farm girl by day, period educator by night, so anyway, digital_farm girl, you
Yeah.
can go find me
And we'll
there.
have that link.
And yeah,
Great.
so
Well,
I'd love to chat.
and the just one final thing, the
Mm,
program is ready, like it's up and running, and like
go.
we can
I
get
hate
our
to just
hands on
say
it.
that link in bio because that's like very 2000 and whatever's. but
I'm still
but
using
you
that.
yes, but you can find the link to my to the shop front where you'll be able
Yeah,
to
cool.
learn about the program, see what it's about. It's I really want this message out there, so it's going to be priced so it's like a no-brainer. Anyone can kind of access the info, and yeah, be
Fantastic.
great. Go have a look.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think when you're moving in the cycle syncing circles, you kind of
Mm,
assume that more women know about it, but it is still pretty it's pretty new.
yeah,
And so like
absolutely.
having someone like you that we can come to understand it better is brilliant. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for taking the
Thank
time to
you.
tell us all about it. And
Yeah, no.
yeah, let's
Thank
get
you, Nadine, for having
let's
me.
get sinking, girls.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy.